Welcome everybody to almost your favorite day of the week. It's Thursday, like before a holiday. It's a good day of the week. This is one of the better day. Like Thursday before a holiday is everybody's favorite day of the week. I think.
I'm off tomorrow. This is my Friday.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like Thursday before
Yeah.
a holiday, I'm off. Aaron, you're off tomorrow. Just a heads up.
Sure. Okay,
Um,
great. Thanks. Cool.
yeah, that's usually everybody's favorite day of the week. Is that like that evening before the long weekend is the world is your oyster in that moment. This is the Lakers Lounge. I'm Anthony Irwin, joined by Harrison Fagan and joined by 2 Chainz / Aaron Larsoul. Um,
Faux bracelets.
Today on the show, we have a lot that we have to get to. I wrote, and it'll be up by the time you guys are listening to this on the pod feed on silverscreenandroll.com about Darvin Ham's rotations and how I think he needs to rely less on guards. LeBron came out and said that he didn't know how long he could play for a team that is not interested in winning, essentially. And then we get a report the morning after from Dan Wojcicki of the LA Times saying, basically, bleep you as a response.
Okay. Paraphrasing, or is that a quote?
No,
I think that was the exact quote. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
All
the
right,
exact
all
quote.
right.
Yeah. Per sources, bleep you. So we have all of that to get to. And if we have time, I want to have a little bit of fun with the James Dolan surveillance
That shit is
face
wild,
recognition
isn't it? Yeah.
tech that Ethan
Go
Strauss
to
wrote
Madison
about
Square
for
Garden, all of
us.
a sudden it's a Bourne movie.
It's unbelievable. Every time I try to think of like how this person can be worse at their job, it's like, here you go. Here's this new and exciting way.
I have sat like the visiting team gets seats. When the Lakers go on the road, the home team gives the visiting traveling party seats in the arena. I have never sat farther away in any sporting event from anything than I did at Madison Square Garden when the what year was 1819, I think, when the Lakers were at Madison Square Garden. Somebody was
Because you're
asking me how the
up
game
on the
was
bridge,
going.
like above the scoreboard. You're up there. The
Yeah,
obstructed
the
view.
auxiliary catwalk media area. Our team.
They're like, yeah,
I don't know.
strap into this bungee cord. We're just gonna kind of, you're gonna dangle up here during the game.
Somebody
you know?
asked me how the game was going. I'm like, I think the yellow ants are beating the blue ants. I don't know. You can't even see the scoreboard from where I was sitting. It was miserable. It's beautiful arena though. It's not beautiful. It's historic.
It is a great
I
place
feel
to
like
see
they
a
just
game. Like
work on the
the
arena.
presentation of it is really cool too. Like the live band and all of that.
What's the difference between historic and historical? Can somebody, one of you English people, majors? No, nothing.
Yeah,
Okay, cool. Let's move on.
I could use it correctly in context probably, but I don't know if I can like.
So I was
explain
gonna say
that.
I don't know if it's a historic or historical arena, but it is
I think it's
the mecca
historic
of basketball,
in
and it's awesome.
In that case, yeah.
Even though I was sitting, I mean, I had to bring oxygen up to where I was sitting. we had to set up camp halfway.
I got a bunch of shit a few years back for saying that MSG was a dump. And
It was.
it was for a long time, and apparently it had been renovated or something like that, and it's apparently better now. When I was referencing it had just been freshly renovated. So, God forbid you insult anything in New York, because the mecca of, I mean, we're all in agreement. It shouldn't be the mecca of basketball, right? Like we can all agree. Like that's not
I
where
would like to go to MSG again, so I'm not going to say anything.
No, I mean it just is. Like whether we think it should be or not, it is.
why? Like because
Because it
came
is.
up
What
with
are
the
we going to
phrase?
debate? What should be the mecca of Mecca? Like
Because
you don't.
because it has been deemed such.
by James Dolan?
No,
By New Yorkers?
It definitely predates James Dolan.
Yeah. Anyway, but all right. So we are going to, and I'm glad. It sounds like my mic is working now.
Yeah,
I think
it
my
does.
mic
Yes.
is okay.
Yes.
Shouts to Harrison for pointing that out. That is the worst when I am editing the pod itself.
You know,
And
I was
I'm
trying to
listening,
save
like,
you and
man,
have
I
it be
sound
seamless,
awful.
but then you're like, okay, let me bring it up just in case
No,
anyone didn't notice that I sound
important.
good now.
It's important that people know that we care about these things. Is in my
Audio
opinion.
quality matters.
Yeah,
It
not
does.
enough to go back and edit it or to catch it before you start the show, but enough to acknowledge it during.
There is no way for me to know unless you tell me. And you waited. We spoke before for like 10 minutes before we started.
I only started paying attention to what you were saying once we were on air.
You generally sound echoey in real life, so we just kind of figured that was,
that's because I usually do that on purpose.
Oh, now you're a PA announcer for a baseball game? Okay, I like it. Not batting.
All right, so I gave you guys the topics that we were going to talk about regarding the Lakers. Which of those, I'll let you pick, Harrison, would you like to start with? Would you like to start with Darvin Ham's lineups? Would you like to start with LeBron's comments? And or would you like to start with the Lakers' leaked response to those comments?
I think we got to start with what LeBron had to say. It feels like sort of the lead news item here, and considering I don't think we've had a pod since then, not
a long one. All right, so here's what LeBron said after last night's game, after the Lakers lost to Miami.
Dennis Schroeder did an interview last week where he said he talked to you and you said you want to play 7 more years till you're 45. Were you feeling particularly springy that day? Is that an aspirational number?
I don't have a number. I know as long as my mind stays in it.
The million-mile stare here.
I can play at this level for
makes me a little
for a minute. Now, it's up to my mind. It's not my body. It's gonna be okay because if my mind into it, I would make sure my body's taken care of, and I'll continue to put in the work. I'm a winner, and I want to win. And I want to win and give myself a chance to win and still compete for championships. That has always been my passion, has always been my goal since I entered the league as an 18-year-old kid out of Akron, Ohio. And I know it takes steps to get there, but once you get there and you know how to get there, playing basketball at this level just to be playing basketball is not in my DNA. It's not in my DNA anymore. So, we'll see what happens and see how fresh my mind stays over the next couple of years.
Winning basketball just for the sake of, or playing basketball just for the sake of playing basketball is not in my DNA
anymore.
Do you think we can
get
anymore?
Anymore is doing a lot of work there.
Do you think? Do we think we can do like DNP DNAs? Like, can we get like LeBron James DNA is not available for tonight's game.
He got a DNA CD. It's
Look, he was the first. I remember it. It was I think it was he got hurt at Golden State, and then I think it was the next game at Golden State where everybody was expecting him to come back and play. His first major injury on Christmas at Golden State. He comes back, and I remember seeing the injury report saying LeBron James is out, load management. And it was the first time we had ever heard the term load management. So I think it's possible he could be the first, some kind of DNA designation.
It's groundbreaking over here.
I mean, the man has some kind of super DNA to begin with. The fact that he's been able to do what he's doing at his age anyway, like his DNA seems to be unique as it is.
I know that we're going to talk about a lot of aspects of this clip and what LeBron said and what he said after that clip because, he sort of continued along that line of questioning. But my favorite part of this that has gone underplayed is the look that kind of hits his face when it's brought up. Dennis Schroeder did a German language interview, and you can see him having like May of 2021 flashbacks to like, oh yeah, me and LeBron aren't vaccinated in German, and having to answer, questions about a German language Dennis Schroeder interview. He's like, you can see him there for a second, like there's a brief darting of the eyes of like, oh no, not again.
That's Dennis give all the best stuff, right? Like it used to be the same thing, Luka, Dirk, or it used to be the same thing with Dirk, or who was it? When I was with the Blazers, there was always like Rudy Fernandez or Sergio Rodriguez would go back, and it was always like the Spanish language. The interviews
Marcelo
in Spain would be like,
Huertas.
"What the fuck did you just say?"
Marcelo Huertas did one after
think
leaving
it won't
the
get
Lakers
back to America somehow.
where he just basically was like, he's like, yeah, D'Angelo Russell doesn't care about winning, and like none of the guys there were serious, and like all this stuff. Like they just let it fly because they're like, nobody.
Right.
Nobody in the
this
US
is being recorded, right?
Yeah, like.
Well, that's the thing with all, like, I mean, I know what you're saying, But like, yeah, role players in general, let it fly more. Like everybody wants to get the quote from LeBron, want to get the quote from so and so or whatever. But like when you're doing, who's the guy who wrote Three Ring Circus? Why am I blanking on his name? Jeff Pearlman was on, and he said that like his favorite people to talk to were role players because they don't get talked to normally, and they were there for the stories too, right. So they haven't heard those stories yet. Right? Yeah, right. All right, so I guess
the point is somebody needs to ask Max Christie if he wants to play basketball just to play basketball anymore. Just see what he says. You know,
where's Matt
how long
Ryan?
Is he planning on playing?
Like Matt Ryan isn't a Laker anymore. Like we can.
Harrison, are you still giving Anthony updates to like turn him into full Joker with the Matt Ryan updates?
Only if I see a good stat, which is
Matt Ryan,
never.
7 of 8 from 3 tonight. You know,
yeah.
that kind of...
No, the one that set me off the other night was my buddy who covers the Spurs saying that Stanley Johnson has looked really good in San Antonio. I was like, this motherfucker.
Yeah, that's our Spurs site manager has been sending me updates, and it's sad.
Matthew Tynan was the one who said that.
Can we point out? I think it's really meaningful as we break down all of the implications of this clip and everything that it means. Can we point out that I don't think it's coincidental who asked the question, by the way? I also don't think it's I also don't think LeBron was caught off guard despite what his facial the machinations.
I'm telling you, it was the Dennis Schroeder gave a German language interview lead in that he was like, "Oh no, what did he say? What did he say this time?"
I'm not entirely unsure that LeBron didn't know that question was coming. How about that?
Yeah, I mean, like I look, he had a good answer ready. Like he dove all the way into like watching his kids play, watching movies, watching all this stuff, making movies. Oh, he didn't mention that? He did. I guess I missed that one. No. Yeah, there is a lot to get to on this clip and in his answers that continued beyond the clip. I think the most obvious answer that you got from Lakers fans was, good God, they're holding this man hostage. And then the most pervasive answer that you got from outside Lakers fans was, you know what you signed up for, right? And I think the answer and the way to respond to this is somewhere in between those two things. Like, I don't think the Lakers are holding him hostage, and I don't think, and I don't necessarily think that when he signed his extension, he should have known that he was getting himself ready for this, because I don't think there's any way to anticipate your GM potentially lying to you on what the team was getting ready to do to surround you with talent. So, like, that's it's somewhere in the middle there. Aaron, I'll let you start with all right. with not what I just said, because then it's just like big hearty sip. But like when you see this
ever
clip,
lied to you, lying out of character.
Not that
have you ever called him Rob Pelinka? Like, is that?
I have not. No, I have
not. But you have told me, and I'm not calling you a liar, and I'm not saying that what you're saying is not true when you say it to me, but you have reiterated on several occasions that LeBron and the Lakers are on the same page, and that he is always up to date on what the Lakers are or are not prepared to do.
Wait. Those are two different things, though. Those are two different things. Them being on the same page is different than LeBron being a part of knowing what's going on. If being on the same page implies that like everybody thinks the same thing or believes the same thing, or is
has the same goals.
Correct. Or believes like this move is the right one or this move is the right one. I'm not saying they're all on the same page. I'm saying that LeBron is not being kept out of the process of knowing what's going on.
Okay. So my thing though is, like, as he's being kept in that process, and as it gets reported and inferred that he has become much less of that process than, say, when he first got there, how does the franchise react to this stuff? Like, is there a reaction other than telling Dan Wojcicki, go bleep yourself?
I mean, I don't. They didn't say that to Dan Wojcicki.
What do you have against?
No, they said to Dan Wojcicki, tell him to go bleep himself. Yeah,
Wojcicki's like, you gonna make a trade? They're like, go bleep yourself, Dan.
there's so much here. I do think, as I've said to both of you individually, and as I have said on maybe this show, but definitely on The Hook, and when we used to do the spaces, LeBron doesn't do anything by accident. I don't think he was caught off guard by this question. And his answer was good. And I think he chooses his words very, was at the beginning of Inside Man, right? Clive Owen, right? Like, I choose my words very carefully and I don't like repeating myself.
Mm-hmm.
LeBron chooses his words carefully. He knows what he's saying. There's a reason for it. At first glance, it looks like he is attempting to exert some public pressure for changes, as he has done throughout his career, has done less so with the Lakers as he had in his previous stops. But that's what it looks like on the surface. As far as the Lakers' reaction, there's not much you can do, right? You can bring LeBron in and say, hey, like, what is it that you're seeing? What is it that you want to happen here? Because, like, I don't think.
Do you think he's going to be banned from moneylaundering.com arena? Like, if he said that about a James Dolan team, would he not be allowed back?
He's
depends if he wears the disguise,
which is unfortunate. It's his favorite arena. If
he wears that Rudy Tooty Fresh and Fruity, the Grand Slam breakfast, whatever. Was it IHOP or was it Denny's? I don't remember. But if he wears the fake nose and glasses and mustache, he will be able to get into to Madison Square Garden, because Dolan's facial recognition.
I think a soccer coach literally did that. He was kicked out and he came back with one of those.
No, you know who it was? It was
baseball.
Valentine was managing the Mets.
No, I think a soccer coach did it too. But yeah, okay. I think Valentine did it also. I think
So I mean, and this goes to, whatever. Like, I wouldn't say I got into a disagreement with, I guess, Lakers Twitter, Lakers fans at large, which we can get into in a second. But my problem is, my issue there was, and Anthony, I will lump you in this group. There's not a lot of nuance. There's not a lot of nuance in the trade discussion, and it just feels like the Lakers just have all these levers they can pull or buttons they can press and just say, pick one, like, do this deal, and it doesn't take into account the other teams, what their interests are, et cetera, et cetera. But it also, there's this sentiment just fix it. Okay, how, what? And so I think, and the Lakers, I would imagine, will and should talk to LeBron. But there's ongoing dialogue. Like, okay, LeBron, I get it. You're right. And by the way, I agree with you. I don't think Rob comes across looking particularly good here, because he publicly made promises he has not yet kept. There are certainly mitigating circumstances.
Seem to plan to keep this year.
I mean, but it just takes one, right? Like, you can say no, and then all of a sudden there's a trade, and then, okay, well, then did he plan it, or did it happen today just because it happened today? So to Lakers Twitter, but also to LeBron in this case, you want change. Okay, what? LeBron is brilliant. There's maybe no better basketball IQ in the history of planet Earth than LeBron. Has he been a great GM in his time? The record is mixed. But okay, LeBron, realistically, what do you want? What is it that is not happening that you would like to have happen? Not, I need to be able to compete for championships. Okay. How? What now? How? You were right. And this, Anthony, you were right. Like, should a trade have been made in the offseason? Yes. I agree with you. A trade should have been made in the offseason. But that's inconsequential now. Here we are. So now what?
So essentially, Aaron is saying that the conversation has become... It goes like that for another minute.
What the hell is that?
How did you get that footage of my cat asking for dinner?
What is that?
Feed your cat, Harrison. You could take a break.
Here is like my ultimate point, and this is what you and I go back and forth about. And Lakers fans, I understand your frustration, but here is my point. All of those arguments that are being made to, you have to do something, whether it was at the 2-10 start, whether it's now, whether it was because AD got injured, whether it was when AD wasn't injured and playing so well, you can make an argument to say all of these things are why you have to make a trade. But somebody on the other side could also reasonably say, take those same data points and say, this is why you don't make a trade, or you don't have to, or you shouldn't make a trade. And now we'll put the offseason aside, put last offseason aside. I agree with you. The Lakers.
If I were the Lakers, I would want to too. Yes.
I agree with you, but I'm saying I believe that was a misstep. The Lakers should have made a trade in the offseason. I agree with that. However, here we are. And at 2-10, you can say, this team is fucking terrible. Get these guys some help. Or you can say, this team is fucking terrible. I don't want to waste the future because it's not going to be good enough. So my point is, it is complicated because reasonable people can disagree. Reasonable people can take the same data point and argue it from either side. And I think, as you started the show with, the reality is probably somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll let Harrison is a budding star right now because of his therapy session on his pod this week.
Budding star, wow.
Loved Harrison, me, the therapist, and Harrison, I guess the receiver patient. Thank you, the therapy patient. But yeah, I my thing is like,
didn't you just say you were going to let Harrison answer?
I will. I said in a second.
He didn't say he was a good therapist. He's going to give his take on it before he hears what I have to say.
He's going to influence your...
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't know.
It's like, well, here's what you shouldn't say to me real quick. Just...
So the argument, if you're saying at 2-10, they are too far gone to be fixed, right? And if you're saying that, now I think now we have reached the point. I'm going to be honest. I like, for those who were saying that it's too late now to fix it, we don't know enough about AD's injury. We got that positive spin that the Lakers are apparently going to revisit this in a couple weeks, and then based off of that, decide what they're going to do from there. Nothing up to that point was remotely positive that I had heard. And even that was very veiled positivity.
No, I mean, speaking of updates, you could read two different ways with the same wording.
Yeah.
Right. Which is like either, cool, he might avoid surgery. And then on the other side, it's like, oh, he might avoid surgery. He is hoping to avoid a procedure.
All of it has been a little, I mean, he was moving fine, right? He's not wearing a boot. Like, all of it has been strange.
Yeah.
Although he could feel fine, but that's
weird.
because there's a stress injury and he's not stressing his foot. And then it goes and plays basketball. Maybe that, I mean, it's a little,
Yeah.
I agree. I agree with that.
So, like, I think at this stage, like, the Lakers are 14-21. They haven't been competitive really since AD has gone down. The defense has fallen off of a cliff. I think we're starting to see players let go of their own individual rope, their portion of the rope this year, where you're seeing like Russell Westbrook's shots, I think, are way up, and his 3-point attempts are way up. I think even Pat has started gunning to a certain extent. He shot like 5 threes in the first.
Pat's making them finally.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't leave Pat out of this. You've criticized him enough. He is actually contributing now.
Into being a useful offensive player again.
And look, if that's what the coaches have wanted from him, then cool. I just like his play to this point has been very, not that. So I kind of wonder if it's him like just kind of showing, hey, other team out there, if you're interested. But I don't know. Like, I just think, and the turnovers, they had 24 turnovers in their last game against 26 turnovers, 26 whatever it was. Miami. It was a ridiculous number against Miami. And it's a lot of things that are showing that everybody is just kind of tuned out on this season. And I think if that is the case, then the moment to make a trade might have passed by. I know that it passed by because they should have done it heading into the season. And the part of this that I just can't get out of my head is that 20 game, like, Rob Pelinka has been around the league for long enough to know that it's not some button that you can just press at 20 games and say, okay, now's the time. Now I'm going to make a trade. Because as we approach that 20 game moment, it was, well, nobody really wants to make a trade in December. And then it was, well, nobody really wants to make a trade before the holiday weekend. And now it's, well, nobody really wants to make it like before the trade deadline, far enough before the trade deadline in the first place. And the 20 game deadline and if that coincides with them not making a trade in the summer and not making a trade at last deadline, Like it just to me has always screamed, for those who wanted to pay attention to something that they didn't necessarily want to hear, they don't want to fix this. They don't think there is any fixing this with LeBron.
Those are two different things.
Well, no, but they arrive at the same place, right? They might be two different things.
No, because the decision making is different. The intention is different. One is accusing them of not wanting to win or not wanting to improve the roster. The other is saying maybe we're too, like, the Russ thing was a bad enough decision that there is at this point no fixing it. But to a level that's satisfactory.
It's literally a distinction without a difference, though. Like,
no. There's a big difference there. Because one is
you arrive at the same place. They haven't done anything.
One of them is accusing them of not doing what they can do to win. Those are two different things. I'm not saying you can accuse them of that. I'm just saying those are two very different things.
Okay. Well, I'll make the accusation, and if people want to disagree with it, then they can disagree with it. Harrison, you haven't been able to talk yet. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, you're just a bad therapist, but I think, I think like your point there of, they don't want to fix it. Like, yeah, like them not making a move is like evidence that, like, yeah, they don't want to fix it, at least badly enough to, like, theoretically give up stuff down the line. But they also may have decided that because they just may not see it as fixable. And I'm sort of inclined to agree with you that at this point, it is sort of too far gone with the AD thing. Like, it's not like we think that they're going to be able to hold, whether they, try as hard as they can, or if they start to individually let go of the rope. It's not like we think that this team is going to, like, keep their heads above water without AD for the next, like, 3 weeks or whatever he's slated to be reevaluated in. Is it 3 weeks from now?
Yeah.
Something like that. So, I'm not saying that there's, like, a bunch of reason to be optimistic or whatever, like, that this is fixable at this point, but I sort of am inclined to agree with you. In retrospect, it's almost inarguable that they should have done something then, because having seen how things have played out, there was no way that this team was going to win enough games to kind of prove that they were quote unquote worthy of a move, early on in 20 games in or whatever it may be. But sort of taking it back to LeBron's comments and, just sort of, because I feel like we've had the debate about, like, the front office and all of this stuff, like, a million different times on a million different platforms. But taking it back to the LeBron
only
part
one
of this, where
is that you just saying you're not a loyal podcaster? What the hell?
You don't pay me enough. I think that, like, taking it back to LeBron's comments, my read on this, like, going all the way back to the extension, and this is not, like, based in any information, this is sort of my theory, I floated it on Twitter last night, is that, everybody was sort of asking, on one hand, why did he sign the extension so early? He was eligible, I believe, for this extension all the way up to the end of the season. I think I saw, like, one of the, CBA experts say on Twitter.
Yes.
And so he could have, signed this extension at any point. If he really wanted to hold the front office's feet to the fire, he could have done that. He could have held out and said, hey, like, I'm not signing this extension until you make a move, until you trade Russ, until you, whatever it is that he wants them to do, he could have held out until they did that. But, I think that, number one, like, LeBron, I think probably wanted the most amount of money that he could guarantee himself as he can. This has been a common theme that you pointed out, that every reporter has brought up, that he wants to accumulate wealth. He wants to own an NBA team one day. He's trying to get his capital up. He's in 500 commercials with Lily from AT&T and Bronny and, everybody else in between. He made Space Jam. He's trying to kind of get his wealth up after recently becoming a billionaire. So part of it may have been that. Part of it may have been the same argument that we've talked about for the Pelinka extension, which, like, whether you agree with it or not, I think you and I have both been critical of it, Anthony, is, the argument for it, in one respect, is that, it no longer appears as though he is GMing for his job. Maybe he can get a better deal. Maybe teams talk to him more reasonably. You could make the same argument to LeBron that, hey, if you extend, I am no longer under the appearance of GMing to keep you. Like, teams can't be like, well, no, you're not just trading for Miles Turner and Buddy Hield. You're trading for Miles Turner, Buddy Hield, and LeBron. You're trading for the opportunity to keep LeBron. And my guess is that part of the sales pitch on why you extend before the season is that, hey, it's going to make it easier to make a deal. And I think that you're starting to see some frustration creep in from LeBron that no deal has been made yet. He feels like he's playing hopeless basketball. Like, he can do everything within within his power. I think he turned 38 yesterday.
I don't think it's even that he feels like he's playing hopeless basketball.
30th.
He is playing hopeless basketball.
Okay, well, happy early
Tomorrow. I think
birthday,
it's tomorrow.
LeBron. Seems like it's been great birthday week for you. Hope that continues.
I think. Oh no, go ahead. Sorry.
No, and so I was just going to say, I think some of it is coming from that. But then, the other side of this, too, is LeBron, and I wrote about this today at SSR, LeBron's not aware. LeBron was not unaware that, of all of these possible, consequences. Like Aaron, you pointed out, he chooses his words carefully. I have to imagine he chooses his extensions just as carefully, if not more. Like, he was aware that, hey, if this goes wrong, I'm signing on this date. I am not tradable this season anymore. There is no way out for me to kind of get out of this situation. If that was something that I ever was going to want, if he would have signed his extension on August 4th, the first day he was eligible, he would have been trade deadline eligible this year and able to, sort of like advocate his way into that. So the idea that he had like, sort of no power here and that kind of thing, like, is also not true to me. Like he made sort of his own decision that he wanted to be in LA. He knew that this was going to be a possibility just by virtue of he was signing the extension before a deal was made. Like, this was theoretically possible that things were going to end up this way. And so, I just think all that has to be noted too.
So correct.
I think you can go back even further than that. Really quick.
Yeah.
Just one second.
Go ahead.
You can go back even further than that, like regarding what you signed up for, to when he first came to LA and he was signing on with an organization with a brand new owner, right? Jeannie had just taken over months prior from Jim, with a brand new president of basketball operations in Magic Johnson who had no prior experience, and with a brand new general manager in Rob Pelinka who had no prior experience in running a basketball team. So this idea that like when he came here, I think the idea at the time was, well, Magic will learn on the job. They would go to CBA school. They would go to tampering school, and they would figure all these things out on the fly, and that hasn't come to fruition. And so, like, it's not necessarily that I have a whole bunch of empathy here for LeBron, because at the end of the day, like, he's an adult. He made this very adult decision, and now he has to stick it out. But also, I can understand where he's coming from if he was told at the time, as has been reported, that, hey, if you sign on this dotted line, we would get you help, and they haven't gotten him help. So I think all of that can be true at the same time.
Do you think it was like a mislead, like one of those from like stories? It was like a misleading promise. It's like, hey, that kind of like that combo guard that they're seen as a little overpriced around the league. Like, we will make sure that we trade them. That the one that doesn't fit all that well with you, that we kind of
yeah, right. They're just describing Taylor Horton Tucker.
We'll make sure that we get rid of them if you sign this extension. And then they immediately traded for Patrick Beverley with Taylor Horton Tucker, and they're like, well, LeBron, promise kept.
Yeah, right.
I think everything, Harrison, that you said is correct.
But not Anthony.
What's that?
But not Anthony. Just me.
Yeah, just you. But I would add one other thing, and that is, right, I think
I'm like, what do you say fuck me for?
The comments after the game kind of speak to this, right? And the whole thing before the year, the commercials, the Father Time commercial, all of that. And then yesterday, his comments
which,
about how
like,
much
again, just shows you he's going after the bag, because like that is not a smart commerel series to green light.
He's been on a lot of he's done a lot of commercials.
Lose some battles with Father Time in some
at the beginning
TV
it looked
games.
like he was losing, and now he's back to being
those
again.
Commercials were not aging well.
So I think it all speaks to LeBron, maybe for the first time, kind of thinking about or considering or recognizing his basketball mortality. And so I think that could be a factor also in why, the extension was agreed to when it was and how it was and all that. Because look, LeBron's going to get whatever money anywhere, but LeBron's been hurt. I mean,
yeah,
he's missed significant time every year as a Laker. So, almost every year as a Laker. Depends what you consider significant, but he's missed time, right? He's not playing 78 games a year anymore. And so may have been an element of like, hey, like, I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe I get hurt again. Let me just get this out of the way. It also, in addition to, it gives the front office some power in, not having to, at least from the outside perspective, not having to assuage LeBron and he might leave, as you alluded to, trading for a couple of guys and trading for LeBron, much like like
that was the thing David Griffin would always say.
The Clippers trade, right? They weren't just trading for Paul George; they were trading for Paul George and Kawhi, which is why. It
was David Griffin and Kobe Altman both made deadline moves to trade for an engaged LeBron. In his years in Cleveland, like that. That's a thing.
So I think that could be a part of it also, and like. You don't have to. I mean, I don't know what conversations were had between Rob and LeBron or whomever, Jeannie and LeBron, whomever, prior to signing it, or what promises were or were not made. But I mean, to be fair, though, like we don't have to know those because Rob specifically said he feels responsible as the caretaker for LeBron's whatever late prime or the last chapter of his career or whatever it was, and that he was willing to do whatever it took to get him the help he needs, including, and he stated this explicitly, including draft picks, including those 2 future draft picks. So I don't think we have to know about like were any promises made or kept or broken or whatever. Rob said, and it doesn't make him a liar, but he has not fulfilled those promises yet. In his own words, he has not done what he said yet. Now
unless he thinks he has, and it was Patrick Beverley.
No. Like this sounds like
there's nuance in context.
When Mia is upset that I promised to take the trash out and I haven't done. I'm like, well, I haven't kept that promise yet.
There you go.
I'm just playing like Meatloaf in the back of my head, just like, but I won't do that.
I'll do anything for love, right?
Yeah.
By the way, Killian Hayes 3-game suspension.
Yeah,
and
wow.
2-game suspension.
Crazy.
Hamidou Diallo,
I can't believe he didn't get 5.
And 1-game suspension for 8 Magic players. Cole Anthony, Mo Bamba, Wendell Carter Jr., RJ Hampton, Gary Harris, Kevin Harris, Franz Wagner, Admiral Schofield.
Are the Magic
and Rashard Lewis
make a trade with the Lakers just to have enough bodies to not forfeit? Like this is get him on the phone, Rob.
That's interesting.
I can't believe he didn't get like 5 games. He punched the guy in the back of the head. What the fuck?
Yeah, and it looked like
Adam Silver was like, yeah, just put in the press release that I said Mo deserved it.
I mean, it was bad.
Did you see the hip check? That's
so,
what he gets.
But to go back to the LeBron, I do think, and this goes back to the same trade conversation. Like, yes, Rob has not done it yet. Will he? Who knows? But it's just not as simple as that. Like, okay, make a trade and fix the roster. It isn't that simple. As much as we would all love it to be, it isn't that simple. There is
not
nuance.
Anymore.
There is a sliding scale of what is worth it, what isn't, etc.
I think it isn't nearly as simple now as it was when he signed the contract. And I think the frustration that is bubbling over is him kind of recognizing that time might have come and gone.
Yeah, between this and the deleted tweet about I'll never miss the playoffs again, LeBron, maybe reckoning with some things on the week of his
let's
38th
also
birthday.
Okay, LeBron's fantastic still.
Hold on, really quick. I want to address this. So Lane is saying, did you all just miss what Pelinka said during the Darvin Ham? That's what we literally just talked about.
So I thought we were just saying that. Yeah.
Yeah. I see people going at Aaron in the comments, and
no, I don't see the comments. No. I want to see them.
Well, don't worry about them.
I want to see the comments.
Well,
come on. I ain't hiding from nobody.
Aaron's not saying this.
There's that one.
Okay, Lane. Come on, give me some more.
That one, and then
okay. They aren't going at me. Lane is going at me.
Yeah, and then there's this really important one. Did you know that orcas are only one of 3 species to go through menopause?
You're going to have to bring orca facts back after games this year. Yeah.
No, I think.
No, hold on, Anthony. Just allow me to address Lane for a second. Lane, and as we all know, Rob would never lie. Okay.
Yeah.
Again,
it's never happened.
Harrison
before.
Fagan. Okay.
Yeah. It's never ever happened. The Kings definitely didn't think they were getting Kyle Kuzma and Montrezl Harrell.
He's having a meeting with Heath Ledger right now to discuss their trade options. Okay.
Heath Ledger. Okay.
You didn't hear that story?
No.
What? No way, Aaron.
Oh,
no.
You're talking. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I know what it is.
So, all right, it does feel a little litigious to say that he hasn't fulfilled the promise yet, and there is still time before the February deadline to still potentially fulfill this promise. But if he doesn't fulfill this promise before the February deadline, and LeBron goes through 2 straight seasons that were over by the time they got to the second year, the second calendar year of that season, I think it's fair to wonder if they'll be planning for a break. And one of the things that I couldn't quite separate in my mind as I was listening to those clips and reading those quotes was, this is like we saw last year, I think, Rob make a concerted effort to get the narrative out there that it was all LeBron behind the Russell Westbrook trade. And I think LeBron lost that war of the narrative in PR last year. It's one of the first times, maybe the first time, that I think we can ever really say that. And I couldn't help but wonder while he was talking about this and the way that he was talking about it. And I do think, Aaron, we do have to weigh the fact that it was McMenamin who asked this question. And it looked like a very well-rehearsed answer when he answered that question. It made me wonder if this is him gaining back that narrative of painting himself as a kind of victim here as he plans his exit. So that when we get to the summer, he's going to be like, look, guys, I did everything I could. Yeah, I did everything I could. I gave him the benefit of the doubt when I signed that extension, and I tried to give him more leverage when I did. I did this, I did that, I even played center. I pretended to know who Austin Reeves was for like 3 months. Like,
how dare LeBron scouted him from 6th grade? Okay.
Took a trip. Is it Monroe? I think it's Monroe. He took a trip down a dirt road to Monroe, Arkansas, a town of 1,200 people.
He found the exact cow that he took a picture of.
He landed in a private jet on Austin's family farm.
LeBron had to sit outside for.
So, I don't know, Harrison. I saw you kind of nodding while I was saying that, but this felt to me like the beginnings of that narrative planting, that planning for, look, we did what we came here to do. We won the one championship. It's clear that this isn't going in the direction that we want. I don't have as much power as I thought I was getting when I got here. And now that's it. I'm going to start wiping my hands clean.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that specific angle of it, of like, is this sort of I'm reframing the narrative and sort of, setting up this potential, this post-credit scene down the line of this season where, I ask out or, whatever it may be. I was just, I was nodding and laughing to myself because I was imagining like Magic's first take appearance after, like, if LeBron demanded a trade on Rob Pelinka's watch, the victory lap Magic Johnson will take is going to be incredible.
You need to get Aaron to throw stuff.
He's gonna be doing like He's gonna be doing like a jig on national TV, just like.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah.
I haven't had a drink in a couple
just
weeks,
like.
And if this happens, if Magic, never mind.
You haven't had a drink in a couple weeks?
No.
Hell yeah! Congratulations.
You're not drinking on the show?
I am. I'm drinking a Kirkland brand, not sponsored. Kirkland brand sparkling water.
Yeah.
So I don't think my honest opinion of this is I don't think you're wrong necessarily, Anthony. I could see why that would be a perspective, and it seems quite like a quite reasonable take. One of your more reasonable takes as you set crypto.com and the facility in El Segundo on fire and go lead
Aaron, you're the first person to call the arena by its correct branded name in like on this podcast feed in like a month.
Yeah, I don't like the name. I don't like the name that Anthony
SBF Arena, is that what it is?
I don't like the name that Anthony calls it. So I'm trying to
Speaking of regrettable nicknames, the Heat still have FTX.
Yes, they do. Yes. My California Golden Bears, it was FTX Field.
Between that and the Dolan thing that we're going to talk about,
all of a sudden it wasn't, and they couldn't figure out what to do with the logo that was on the field. They just put a huge navy rectangle over it, and we're like, I don't know what to do here. But I don't think that's what it is, because I don't think LeBron wants to leave. What I think it is, I don't think it's him like trying to reshape the narrative. I do think it is him trying to exert the pressure he's exerted at various times here, but much less so than he has at other places. I do think it is him saying, like, what he can, because he doesn't have the power he's had before. One, because he's locked in. Two, because like organizationally, he just doesn't have that anymore. Part of that is narrative based. I think you're right about that. Part of that is a pushback from push and pull, pushback against the, okay, you wanted Russ and here we are, you know, you made your bed, lay in it kind of thing. But I also think it's because, like, frankly, LeBron's not the player he was. He's still really good, but he's still great even, but he's not the player he was, and he signed. But I do think it is LeBron attempting to exert some of the pressure and maybe get back some of the control that he has not had as much of with the Lakers, more so than I think it is him trying to like gain sympathy points if at some point he does ask out.
I think
there's
he has
also
all the
like
sympathy
if he does ask out,
I mean,
there's not,
all
there's
of
not a lot
the
of trades.
above,
Like go find a trade on the trade machine there's not a lot of trades for LeBron.
Yeah, my buddy James was or Snotty Drippin on Twitter was like canvassing basketball Twitter, and it's so funny because Lakers fans get labeled as like, oh, you make the delusional trade ideas, and then I saw people like
you included.
I saw somebody like Darius Garland is untouchable for LeBron. And I'm like, okay, man, sure, fine. Absolutely.
I mean,
Anthony, I love that you just painted Lakers Twitter as the ones who.
You see how he separated himself?
Unreasonable trades.
You see how he separated himself? From
it's
that,
like the Garfield, like, wonder who that reputation's for. You know, like.
We do.
Anthony
we
put
do
75 trades. Well, not so much anymore. Maybe he does really feel like it's too far.
I had to stop because
2
like
weeks ago, Anthony put 75 trades in the trade machine and send them all to the Silver Screen and Roll Slack, and then another 30 of them would get texted to me every day.
I got an email from Fanspo saying like, "Hey, calm down. Our servers can't handle this anymore."
It's not a
Go
server.
try ESPN's.
Somebody manually is doing it for you every time. They're assembling them when you click the little buttons.
Eric is on the other side of Fanspo. Damn it, Anthony. All right, I do want to segue over here, and there is going to be a lot more that comes out of this. I was surprised more didn't come out of this as the day wore on, because those were some pretty earth-shattering quotes. Like him talking about like, yeah, I'm really gonna have to reevaluate things over the next couple of years. It's freaking wild, and I think it's even
my mind
because
which is also interesting. Like
which is
like
great.
the mind
Like
is the
that
thing
was
he
Kyle
can
Goon's
control,
point.
and that speaks to like, hey, Lakers, do something if you want to keep me engaged. It does speak to that. That's why I think that's what it's about. But he's like, if my mind is right, I know my body will be right. I mean, like, because I do not doubt that if his mind is into it, he'll like do what he can for his body. I have no doubt of that.
My mind still thinks I can do all kinds of shit that I was doing at 23.
But like at some point, the body's gonna be like,
yeah. I want to really quickly keep things positive and talk about Darvin Ham's coaching and and some of the issues
when I said I hadn't had a
with
drink in a couple weeks?
So
you're gonna lead me back down a dark path.
I am really still rooting for Darvin because I think he's a good dude. I don't think he's as bad as he's shown himself to be to this point. I think the roster has made things really difficult on him. But I don't also think he has done everything he can do with the roster. And if this feels like I'm saying a lot of the shit that I was saying about Frank last year, it's because we said a lot of the shit about Frank last year. But I'm done with the multi-guard lineups. And I wrote about this, like I said earlier. This is going to be up on silverscreenandroll.com. I tweeted about this earlier. Here's the Lakers' 3-point guard lineups, the data on it. Russ, Patton, Dennis, 97.9 offensive rating, 144.6 defensive rating. That's a negative 46.7. Russ, Dennis, and Lonnie, 97.6 offensive rating, 133.1 defensive rating. That's a negative 35.6 rating. Pat, Dennis, and Lonnie, 106.6 offensive, 120.1 defensive, 13.5 net, and you can just kind of understand it doesn't get better from there. It's a theme, and the Lakers are starting every game like this. The starting lineup that they've been trotting out there so far this year, with even before they had guys go down with injury, the lineup that they have right now because of the injuries, right? Beverly, Schroeder, Walker, Bryant, and James, that has a 101.9 offensive rating and a 110.4 defensive rating, a net of negative 8.5. That's a bad lineup. Even before Davis went down, that group was a net negative, where if you just swap out Thomas Bryant for Anthony Davis, which you think, That's got to be a 20-point swing. No, not really. It was 104.1 offensive rating and a defensive rating of 105.6, which means that those 3-guard lineups are so bad that they're turning LeBron and Anthony Davis into a net negative out there together. And that's just insane. It's bananas. And, there's all this data on it. And I know that coaches don't necessarily listen directly to data. It's not that simple. But I don't know, man. Like, this is... It's bashing my head up against the wall. And I know, like, a popular response, and Jacob said this in the Slack last night. Aaron, you have voiced some of this too, in that, like, when I say play more wings, they don't have very many of them, if any of them. I would just say, like, play the closest thing you have to wings then. Like, get something bigger out there, because I think that those lineups, those 3-guard lineups, are below the baseline of size and physicality that you need in the NBA, and they're below the baseline of shooting that you need in the NBA, and it's really hurting them. They're leaking points every time he goes to those 3 and in some cases 4-guard lineups. In one case, 5-guard lineups. I don't. Aaron, you have more context on this than I do, and I know a lot of people jump immediately to locker room politics and how that is playing a role in some of the decisions that he's making here. I do think that's playing a role in it, but eventually you would think that because of the results of those lineups and all of the information that we have that they aren't working, eventually he's going to have to stop going to them. Do you see an end in sight?
Aaron, before you answer this, can I just cut in super quickly?
Yeah.
It's not just, Anthony, you read out all the lineup data, and obviously it's bad, but it's not just that either, right? Like, it's, even if Darvin hates analytics, which I don't believe to be the case, but, like, even if he hates, numbers or, anything like that, it's the eye test too. Like, these groups, like, they don't look good. It's clearly not working.
Yeah.
I think it is less so. To answer your question, is there any end in sight? I don't know. And the reason why I was going to say, I was going to save this part for later, but it goes right to it. Darvin is a first-time head coach.
Yeah.
And he has his thoughts on what the right way to attack this problem is. It has not worked so far, but coaches are by nature or inherently very stubborn and slow to adopt change because they have their philosophies, right? And so I do think some of this is on Darvin. I don't know how much. I think the indicators so far are not great, but the roster is very flawed. But it's not. It is plainly not working. Plainly, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But the answer is, like, what do you do? And I understand why, because, like, yes, there are way too many guards on the roster, but frankly, like, those are the better players. So yes, you want more size.
It's almost like you shouldn't design a roster with a trade in mind and then not make the trade.
That is a reasonable statement. And here's the other thing. And you said, like, the however many point guard lineups. Lonnie and Pat Bev are point guard size, but they're not point guards. The other issue is when you turn the ball over 20, you cannot play this many guards regularly and turn the ball over 26 times. Is that on the roster construction? No. The roster construction is flawed. That's why there's this many guards to begin with. But that's not on the roster construction. Is that on Darvin? No. Like, the guys need to take better care of the ball in that case specifically. If you're going to have that many small guys out there, you better take care of the ball.
You should have an advantage in, like, skill or shooting or something, right?
Right. But you want the core issue of the Lakers. Usually teams that are play smaller, and it's a misnomer to, like, if you play small, you play a bunch of small guys. It's not about having a smaller center. It's about usually when you play smaller, you have more skill. The Lakers don't have the skill to be playing this small, but they don't have the big guys either. So I think I don't think Darvin's been great. I don't think he's covered himself in glory this year, but I think it's too early to make any kind of proclamations. And part of it is, like, what's the answer? Okay, play more big guys. Okay, those guys aren't any good. So I don't like.
Well, these guys aren't either. We can.
But they have a track record of being better than the guys that are the other options.
But they don't have a track record of being good in the roles that they're being asked to play in while they're playing together. They might have track records, of playing point guard well. Like, they might, but they don't really have track records. Lonnie Walker doesn't have an incredibly great track record at this point of playing small forward very well. I don't think Patrick Beverley is the 3-and-D wing that Rob Pelinka said he was going to be immediately.
I think the one complaint that I have, and I think is a fair complaint, is like, I get playing a million.
I like that you're calling your own complaint fair.
My point is, I think it is fair for you.
The
guys
judge,
to have
me,
also.
has heard the case,
Yes,
and I have
deemed
decided
it
that it is
so.
fair.
I think a fair complaint is, and I would agree with this, is how I should have said this, is that I am okay with playing a bunch of small guys because that's who's there, and those guys are better than the big guys. Like, whatever you think of Dennis, right? Like, he's better than JTA. He's better. He's certainly better than your adult child, Damian Jones. But I think the one place where
I don't
would
think
disagree
Austin
with-
Reeves is a better center than Damian Jones, though.
Typical of Aaron
sure?
to not even mention Wenyen Gabriel,
I don't-
his
Are you
arch
sure?
nemesis.
Yeah,
sure?
right.
Oh yes.
One
right.
of these days.
Why do I hate?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why do I hate Wenyen again? I don't remember why that.
One
became a
day
thing.
I will learn.
I don't really remember the origin of this. bit,
I
but-
don't hate. Yeah, no, Wenyen's
Yeah.
fine. I just like.
We can't
Yeah.
call it a bit. It's not. It's
Wenyen's
just the
fine.
truth.
But I don't think the combinations have been optimized. Like, I don't think there's any reason to play Dennis and Russ together. They're both terrible defensively, and they don't work together offensively. So like little things like that, like I get you have to play them, but you don't have to play them together. So little things like that. I've been I've been saying on Twitter now for a while, I think Austin needs to play more with LeBron. I think he needs to be tied to LeBron more when it was AD was available, tied to both of them, because as you saw, was it the Orlando game or was it the Miami game?
No,
Where
Miami.
Austin,
He was getting eaten up by Oladipo.
yeah, it was the Miami game. He was awful.
Yeah.
And what happens, and you saw some of this in the Orlando game, and I think Austin is probably the third best player on the team and the second best available player on the team. But when
Man, that's depressing.
when he
I like Austin.
he has a bad habit of, and it happens a lot with his dribble, he has a bad habit of trying to do too much when he is not surrounded by better players. When he can be like a glue guy and do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, he flourishes in that role. But when he feels like that burden is on him to create more or do more with the ball, he gets himself in trouble because he's not good enough at it yet. So like little tweaks like that, I would like to see Austin more with LeBron. I would like to see Dennis and Russ not at all together if possible, but definitely together less, which I think is probably the reason Dennis is starting, is because to separate him and Russ, but then they still end up playing a bunch together. So little things like that. I don't think you can say, because there just aren't enough other options, I don't think you can say like you're playing way too many guards, don't play them. But I think the combinations should be looked at.
Yeah, and like it's one thing. Yeah, like I agree with everything that you've said about these are generally the more skilled players on the roster and all of that stuff. But yeah, like you got to change up. Which it doesn't matter if it's, Russ with Dennis or if it's, like all of the, whatever combinations you don't like, the stuff that they're doing right now is not working. They have to change up the combinations. Even if you think that it should still be the same guys playing, they need to, mess with some of these lineups a little bit.
How do we evaluate though this here? Like, I don't know. We're doing the same thing we did last year with Frank. And obviously now with Ham, you weigh into all of this that he's a rookie head coach and he's going to learn on the job, which, by the way, was something that Pelinka probably should have taken into account when he was hiring him, right? Was this guy's going to go through some growing pains as being a head coach? And is this a group that you want a rookie head coach at the helm of? But how do we evaluate?
Well, Anthony, as we heard all summer, Darvin's going to fix it. Okay, that was the only the only problem was Frank.
That's a good point. Yeah. But like, how do you evaluate this? Because I'm sick of doing the whole, well, the roster is bad, but Ham also maybe not great. I don't know. I don't know what to do here.
Yeah, I mean, I am also sick of not knowing whether or not the coach is playing bad lineups because he has a bad roster or if he just like has bad instincts. Yeah, and it's just that's the thing. It's kind of impossible to know for sure. Like there's certain stuff like the starters are clearly not working. So like that's on this point that's on Ham to some degree, regardless of whether Raj I thought has been really good on pushing back on the politics aspect of it, of like what politics? You're 7 to 8 games under 500. Like there's no politics at this.
I don't
point,
think the politics is a thing anyway. I mean, like the biggest obstacle to all that, he sent Russ to the bench. and
Yeah.
made that, work. Is
Yeah,
So
Russ
now
after
we're
that,
supposed to
there
believe
should
that
be no
he's like
politics.
afraid to bench
That was the
Dennis
biggest
because of
political
politics.
issue.
Yeah,
Done.
like I don't buy into that at all. And so that's my point of, at this point we're forced to believe that you think that this is the best available starting unit, which it just kind of, it's at least worth trying another one. Maybe you're right, and that's really depressing. But it's at least worth giving another one a shot to see if they can do better than like worst starting lineup in the NBA.
Yeah, it's tough here because, like Aaron said, and I think this is really important.
And I'm being hyperbolic. They're not actually the worst starting lineup in the NBA. There's like
they're up there
tanking teams, but
they have to
They've
they
been
have
pretty
to
bad.
be close. But like Aaron mentioning that coaches are inherently stubborn and noting the philosophical approaches to this. That philosophy is what got Darvin Ham to being the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers in the first place, and that isn't something that you just like. Now
No,
I
it's
am
the same argument
I
for
am now
Russ, right?
smarter. Like
Russ can play differently.
Yeah.
Can he? He's been doing this very successfully for 20 years. No, he probably can't.
And also, like as a coach too, unless that feedback, like this conversation that we're having right now, right? Aaron, you could pass along this note, and you could pass along these numbers to Darvin, and he's just going to be, unless it's coming from, his staff and the people that he trusts, he's going to tell everybody who mentioned this, like, if we present him with this data, he's all the more likely to double and triple down on this stuff because fuck you nerds. Like that's how this is generally going to go with stubborn head coaches.
Yeah, maybe don't show him a picture of me and then be like, this guy thinks you should change your lineup. Like,
Yeah, right. I'm gonna try to tuck in this double.
Yeah.
Darvin, I swear, I think this is a good idea.
Grab the top of this, and it's me and Anthony, and these guys think that these guys have some thoughts on your coaching ability, Darvin.
Hold on, let me change Aaron's name back to 2 Chainz and say 2 Chainz has thoughts, and maybe that'll get this thing to change.
It would be like I'm under a Drake Instagram post.
Yeah, I don't know. I want to root for the guy, not just because, him succeeding means that the Lakers are in a better spot, but also because he seems like a legit dude. Dan Wojcicki wrote that great profile of him that he came off really well in. And with all of that said, and even while I acknowledge that this roster makes it impossible for him to succeed, damn near impossible for him to succeed, I don't think he's putting himself in the best position either. And I think the most extreme... I think the nth degree statement or take that I can have on this is that I think they would be better off without Dennis Schroeder. Like I think if he was just not there and that was not an option for Darvin Ham to go to, then that would open up, it would get more Troy Brown minutes, and it would get and it would get more natural small and power forward minutes, and rather than having to see Lonnie go down there and try to, block out centers on the backside
Who are the natural
of
small and
defensive
power
rotators.
forwards?
I look, it's not Lonnie.
Anthony, or if they had,
Lonnie.
hypothetically, like, it's not a matter of Dennis or not. It's a matter of, what they brought Dennis in for and why they thought they had to sign Dennis.
Yeah.
Would they hypothetically be better off if, say, they had approximately 50 million of, like a center and a shooter instead of another point guard?
Obviously.
That it's sort of redundant with Dennis? Who's to say?
Yeah. And like as I was writing this out, I was writing out like the number of guards that the Lakers have, and it got to 7. They have 7 guards who are like 6'4", 6'5", and under, and that's impossible. And we can't separate that from how we evaluate Darvin. However, I do think he's made life a lot more difficult on himself by, I think, because of an over-reliance on the guards, and where there is more NBA talent at the guard positions, but there isn't NBA wing talent at those guard positions. And I think that's an important difference to make there.
Some of this it kind of goes back to, we've been talking about Magic, but his first year here with Rondo and Lance and Lonzo, and the idea of
Yeah,
and some of this comes from, look, I don't know about this year
Lakers.
specifically.
That's how I'm going to talk about them from now on.
Some of this comes from LeBron too. His
Yeah.
willingness, his desire, his ability to be right. Whatever. 2 years ago, he led the league. He was the point guard and led the league in assists. Some of this,
And then he got finished, and he's like, "Oh, that was fucking exhausting. Like, can we please like?"
Can we get some ball handling back here, please? Can we get some creation?
Is Lance available? Can we?
I like Lance. Yeah, Lance is one of my favorites, actually. But I would be for Lance coming back. You know what? Let's see Lance strumming the guitar, making some threes. I'm for it. And he's also 6'5".
I wonder if Russ would sarcastically strum the guitar back at Lance if Lance made a three. Lance makes a three and strums the guitar, and Russ just like just strums the guitar back at him, but to mock him, but then remembers that they're actually teammates. All right, let's really quickly have a little bit of fun at the Knicks, with the Knicks, and this story is effing bananas. And if you haven't read it, it is behind a paywall. So, either subscribe to Ethan Substack or find a friend who is.
Ethan does good work.
Ethan wrote about apparently the Knicks utilizing facial recognition technology to ban fans who have said mean things about James Dolan, which
on Facebook too.
Well, specifically, mostly
telling him to sell
they have
the team, right?
trigger phrases, right? They have trigger phrases.
Yeah, okay.
One of them is sell the team. I would imagine there are some other things you could say about James Dolan that would get you kicked out of there.
I just can't. I'm dying laughing at the idea of like James Dolan's like ban pages intern on like the intern that runs his ban page on Facebook being like, "Oh, Mr. Dolan, sir, somebody is under the comments on our new music video telling you to sell the team. Like, can you put them into the facial recognition algorithm?"
Do they have how much like effort are they putting into this? Is it like, I assume it's mostly Twitter.
Lot.
I assume it's mostly Twitter where this is happening.
A lot.
No, what example?
What if your avatar is not your face? Are they like digging in and finding your other
Facebook? They're using Facebook, so that they're going into LinkedIn, like there's some Facebook, there's some Twitter, and like the people that he spoke to, some of his sourcing for the piece has said like that appear to be from the security unit that actually administers
security guards who are tired of carrying this out.
they're literally saying this is bullshit.
Right, they don't want to be fighting Charles Oakley in the hallways of Madison Square Garden anymore.
The part of this that I can't like not think about is the idea that these security teams would be otherwise, entangled with one of these fans who tell James Dolan to sell the team if they get an actual threat. Like, God forbid, obviously, that doesn't happen or whatever. But like this idea that he's using actual security resources that are there to keep people safe in order to keep his reputation safe, which he can only do himself.
I don't think these are MSG ushers that are doing this. I think that this is probably
they're showing up with police. They have lawyers showing up. Like, according to Ethan,
the most dystopian part of this was that apparently the security personnel, like, they wear body cams now, which, like, I think in general is, for security, like police, like that's, net positive. But idea. Like they're now feeling like they have to carry this out because if they don't, all of their actions are being recorded, so they can't even go to people and just be like, hey, like, I'm really sorry about this. I got to pull you aside. They're not allowed to tell the people why they're being pulled aside and warned that they're in the building. And they're worried that they're like, if they reveal it, it's going to be on their body cam type of thing.
So I saw it like very quickly, but there's some sort of like tier system of what people say or what kind of security.
Like
there are also two different types of bans, which was hilarious. It's like very clear that like James Dolan wrote this down on the back of like a napkin for someone. Like this is not.
But like to the point I just made, this is directly from Ethan's Substack. Quote, "It's a joke." Well, quote and then quote. "It's a joke, to be honest with you," says someone with intimate knowledge of Madison Square Garden's security policies. "They understand that there's a significant danger in redirecting resources from safeguarding 20,000 people towards simply bullying customers. Quote, to have a conversation with a guest that can't come in because they kind of spoke their mind without really going above and beyond. It's a joke," end quotes. Like this, if I'm just going to say it, and this might be me chicken littling here, but I don't know how you ever set foot in MSG if you're a Knicks fan after this, because they are using resources that would otherwise be there to keep me safe. No, those things are they're being used on things that are not that because of James Dolan's ego. And that, like, in a city like New York, where obviously there is a history of targeted attacks in that city, like, that's terrifying. like beyond the ethical and tyrannical aspects of all of this, but like from a legitimate safety standpoint, I don't know how any Knicks fan is like, yeah, no, sign me up.
Seems like our security are busy with real important tasks at
this ship has sailed for Anthony, but I got to go back and see how critical Harrison's been. Go back and look through his Twitter to see if him and his wife can come hang out with me at a game.
Well, that was going to be.
I don't know.
Is this something that Jeannie is considering? Because if so, I got to stick to like,
Stop it.
Stop
it.
You got to go to games in Dallas and San Antonio.
Which owner do we think is most likely to implement this next? That's a good question.
None.
It definitely would have been Sarver.
But here's the other thing. Yeah. No, but here's the other thing.
No, he doesn't have the money for the security system.
But as it relates to the Lakers, you have to own the arena to do this, right? Like, if somebody else is in charge of the arena, you don't get to implement this sort of thing.
So you think it's Lacob? Somebody says fuck the two timelines, and they're like
things about Wiseman online. If anyone who made, he's like, I want you to track down that Samit Sfondiari who made fun of me for going to Wiseman's G League game.
Trade Wiseman. Shit,
he is in the building banned for life. I want him out.
I'm going when the right before the Super Bowl, the Lakers are at the Warriors, so. I'm going out. I got to make sure. Maybe I got to scrub my feed. I got to see what I've been saying. I might not be allowed in Chase Center.
All right. Well, that's going to do it here for this episode of the Lakers Lounge as we get ready for yet another long holiday weekend. Make sure you guys are all being safe out there. Fun year that we have all enjoyed together. Insane year that we have all enjoyed together here on the Silver Screen and Roll pod feed and on all of our Silver Screen and Roll platforms. Thank you guys a ton for all of the support. Despite the Lakers just seeming to openly hate their fans, it has been I'm not going to go so far as to say like it's been fun covering this team.
Wait, they especially hate me, or I especially?
No, you especially hate the fans.
It's first it was Wenyen Gabriel, and now it's the fans.
Yeah, no. I mean, I would like to join.
Aaron, do you have facial recognition technology? Is this something that you're like?
ask anybody that I know. That happens that I know from Twitter, Lakers fans from Twitter or wherever else. I am very welcoming, no matter what you've said on the internet. I am very welcoming and like to show people a good time at the arena that shall remain nameless because I don't want Anthony to call it a bad name. That makes me sad. No, I do not have facial recognition software. I like everybody to have fun and have a good time at crypto.com and at Lakers games, and I'm available to anyone.
All right.
And well, in the spirit of the new year, we're going to be upgrading things on the pod feed. Anthony, I've been waiting all show to make this announcement. You never asked me what I was drinking. What I am drinking is we're stepping up our branding. Oh, wow. You can't see it because of the light. Your alcohol here. Here we go. I'm just announcing to all sponsors.
Yes. That's why I'm not drinking until this feed gets sponsored by an alcohol brand. Then I'll start drinking.
Until 2023. In 2023, Aaron, you can be the official alcohol sponsor of this basketball show.
Aaron is the most committed to sponsorship of anybody I have ever known. Embarking on sobriety.
Please. So please. It could even be alcohol I don't like.
Yeah, like a lot of people are like,
drink vodka. Tito's, what you got for us? That's by Anthony.
They're like, I have a sponsor. Aaron's like, I need a sponsor to drink. Like, I
need a sponsor and a sponsor.
Yeah.
Happy New Year, everybody.